Welcome to Human Growth and Development. What I want to do in this short presentation is just introduce you to the course, talk about what we mean by human growth and development, and introduce you to a couple of perspectives for looking at human growth. And I want to begin with a very generic definition of psychology. Open up any introductory psychology textbook and you'll see this definition, that psychology is the science of behavior and mental processes. And let's take a moment to look at each of those words. So behavior typically observes to what we can see. Right? It's overt actions like sitting down to eat a meal, emotional expressions, social interactions, things that we can see. And because we can see them, then we can directly measure them. Mental processes, on the other hand, refer to things we can't see. We can see a smile, right? That's an emotional expression, but we can't see the underlying emotions or feelings. We can't see a thought. Okay? We can't see motivations. We can't see how someone's actual perception of an object. Okay? And so mental processes refer to those things we can't see. And what we have to do then is infer those processes from other measures, things that we can see. Okay? So for example, learning is not something we can see. If you're taking a test, we actually can't see how much you've actually learned or even the process of you learning the information that's on that test. Okay? So instead, we infer your learning from your performance on the test, the grade you get. As you're taking the test, we can't see the decision making that's going on inside your head as you decide to circle A, B, C, or D. Right? We can't see the problem solving going on in your head as you think how to answer a math problem or formulate an answer to an essay. But we can see your actual answer. And so that's how we measure mental processes. Now, we can also talk about behavior in a more general sense, as behavior as including those overt observable actions as well as those inner mental processes. Okay? And in psychology, we want to study, we want to understand behavior in that general sense. Okay? And we all want to do that, and we all engage in what's known as folk psychology. We all try to infer other people's motivations, their thoughts, reasons for doing things. We want to understand things. It's just human nature. Okay? But in science, we're trying to do that systematically and empirically, and not just relying on opinion. So we want to test out whatever thought we have about behavior in general. And we'll talk more about that when we get to research design in this class. Now, when we talk about behavior in mental processes, really we're trying to understand, again, the behavior of an individual. What makes them tick? Why would they do that? Or we're trying to understand that in terms of a social group, so in a group of individuals. Okay? We often infer those mental processes from the overt behavior that we see. But they don't necessarily match up. Okay? So let's imagine three scenarios and compare the emotional expression with the actual emotion that a person has experienced. And in this case, I'm just using myself as an example. All right. So I may feel angry, I may have an emotional expression on my face, and I may yell. All right. In this case, the inner feeling and the external expression are matching. All right. Or, in the second scenario, I might feel angry, but remain calm and keep a neutral expression and express myself in such a way as to kind of explain why I'm feeling angry. Right? When you did such and such, I felt such and such. Right? Or I may feel angry, but smile and just shrug it off. In this case, then, the internal feeling is not matching the external expression at all. Okay? Now, why? Well, all kinds of things influence our behavior. Okay? One of those is context. Okay? So, you can think with the first scenario where I feel angry and I act angry. Maybe that happened because I was caught off guard, or I was just really, really hungry and had very little control over my emotional expression, or just been a bad day and I was stressed, and again, it affected my ability to react to that internal anger. All right, you can think of all kinds of situations where that might occur. In the second scenario, where I'm calmly dealing with the anger, you can think of a number of scenarios where you might do it that way. In particular, as a parent, it may be a way that you want to model behavior for your children. Sit down and explain why you're feeling that way, and work towards resolving the feeling and the situation itself. On the third scenario, maybe it's a case where expressing my anger, either yelling or calmly, wouldn't have gotten me anywhere, or maybe have put me in harm. Maybe I have a boss who could be vengeful, right? And to say, hey, I didn't like you doing that, they may take that personally and take it out on me at some point. Right? So all kinds of things will influence how we express ourselves, context being one, and certainly our age can do that. Right? We all have different levels of maturity, and this brings us then to defining what we mean by human development. And here is the definition from the textbook. The science of human development seeks to understand how and why people, all kinds of people, everywhere, of every age, change over time. And there's all kinds of key words in here, and let's just take a moment to walk through some of these key words. There's that word science again. So again, we're trying to systematically understand and empirically understand development. Okay? And I think there's a word left out. We want to know what kind of changes happen over time. Right? But we don't just want to know what happens. We want to know how those changes happen, and we want to know why they're happening. Right? So we want to know, so change A happens. Well, what's the process that initiates that change? That's the how part. And there has to be some functional reason behind that. All right? Or at least we hope there's a functional reason behind that change. And that's understanding the why of development. Okay? We don't want to exclude anyone. All right? And we don't want to exclude any culture or any region. If all we do is studying changes in college students, then we're not getting representative of non-college students, right? And so we want to really study a variety of groups of people, and we certainly want to study of every age, since we are just starting development. Okay? And of course, we're looking at change over time. And by change over time, we're talking about the entire lifespan of an individual, all right, from birth to death. Okay? And in looking at that, you come to realize there are some things that don't change, that some things are fairly constant throughout the lifespan of an individual. Other things can change at any point in a person's life. And that change can become growth, or as the individual ages, those changes can start being more detrimental to the individual. All right, so earlier in a person's lifespan, change tends to be growth. Later on, it tends to go the opposite way. Right? But also in understanding development, we want to see it as plastic, that is, that it changes, that development is not fixed, right? And that plasticity allows us to adapt to our circumstances, and that development is influenced by a wide variety of factors, including context, culture, environment, parenting, all sorts of different factors will influence development. But underneath all that, as we go through this class, we'll talk about things in terms of between ages, say 2 and 6. These are the things that tend to change, right? But understand that each individual is going to make those changes at their own point in time. And so there's tremendous amount of variation in all those changes that happen through the lifespan. Now, the individual is developing as a whole, right? But we can study development through 3 domains, right? And these tend to be the areas where development happens. But again, they're not necessarily exclusive, right? So biological development is referring to things like physical development, all right? We start off pretty tiny, we get bigger as we grow, all right? First, health factors, diseases, babies are very limited in terms of their movement, and as we grow and reach adolescence, we become very agile, strength grows. All that refers to kind of the biological domain. Cognitive domain refers to really those mental processes, those things that we can't see so much. So in terms of perception, imagination, judgment, decision making, impulse control, intelligence, right? And then psychosocial development really has 2 domains. It refers to emotional development, right? Ability to experience, express, and resolve feelings, and to social development, right? Our interaction with parents, interaction with friends, work environment, all those sorts of things. Okay? And again, the individual is developing within all these areas. It's just in terms of trying to understand the individual holistically, we tend to focus on one domain at a time. But understand that all this is interactive. So, for example, impulse control is really dependent, in good part, on our development of our brain and the areas of the brain that are important for that. But of course, that also is going to be influenced by our social environment and our emotional growth as well. All right? And so as we walk through this class, we will talk about biological growth, and we'll talk about cognitive growth, and we'll talk about psychosocial growth. It's important, though, to begin thinking in terms of how all of that is happening together within an individual. Okay. All right, so that's the introduction to this class, and welcome again, and hope you enjoy all of this.